Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Lee, and this morning we are going to be exploring the life of Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was a renowned horror author in the first half of the 19th century. But before we do anything else, let's take a look at our thesis. Despite the tragedies and struggles in Edgar Allan Poe's personal life, both before and during his literary career, he was able to craft works that profoundly shaped and influenced the horror genre. First, let's dive deep into Poe's life before his literary career. Poe's father immediately left when he was born, leaving him with his mother until she died from tuberculosis when Poe was 2. He was left orphaned but was soon fostered by a wealthy Virginia couple. However, he was never formally adopted due to the strained relationship he had with his foster father, John Allan. When Poe went to the University of Virginia, John Allan only gave him part of the money he needed. Poe turned to gambling to try to make up the difference, but instead fell into serious debt of $2,000. When Poe asked Allan for help paying them off, Allan refused, and Poe was forced to leave university. After dropping out for a steady income and a place to live, Poe joined the military under the alias Edgar A. Perry. He served for about 2 years until he was discharged to attend West Point Academy to become an officer. However, he was court-martialed and dismissed less than a year later for neglecting his duties and disobedience. While enlisted in the Army, however, Poe published his first collection of poems, Tamerlane and Other Poems, during his service as a private stationed in Boston. It went almost unnoticed. However, after winning a short story contest for MS Found in a Bottle, he was able to get a job in editorial work. Poe worked at many different magazines throughout his literary career, but through them, he was able to publish more of his works. During these years, he released some of the most renowned earlier pieces, including The Fall of the House of Usher, The Murders in the Rue Morgue, and The Telltale Heart. Let's take a deep dive into one of them. The Telltale Heart follows a man obsessed with his neighbor and carefully plans and murders him, hiding the body under his floorboards. Overcome by guilt, he begins hearing a sound like a heartbeat in his house, which grows louder and drives him to confess to the crime. Next is a quote from the text. "It is impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived it haunted me day and night. Object there was none, passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was this. One of his eyes resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye with film over it. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. And so, by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man, thus rid myself of the eye forever." It is clear that our narrator is the murderer, driven by a fixation that he claims is caused by the eye. Through his first-person, unreliable perspective, we see his guilt and paranoia grow, especially as he hears the heartbeat in his head. This focus on the mind, obsession, and inner torment helps shape psychological horror. According to Robert Shulman, in the journal article, Poe in the Powers of Mind, Shulman explains, in his best fiction, Poe achieves acute insight into the mysteries, processes, and terrors of the human personality without draining our shared inner life of its basic mystery. He does the same thing in The Raven, a poem in which the narrator, mourning the death of his beloved, is visited by a mysterious raven that only says the word nevermore. Through the story, his grief and obsession grow. The poem explores the fears and struggles of the human mind, showing the narrator's sorrow and guilt without fully explaining them. Even after the success of The Raven, Poe struggled with poverty. He never received any inheritance because his foster father removed him from the will. His work often paid him very little, and he moved frequently between jobs. Poe sometimes earned money through gambling, but it often worsened his financial instability. Poe's romantic relationships were often marked by tragedy and loss. He married Virginia Clem, his cousin, when she was only 13 and he was 27. Their marriage was short as Virginia fell ill with tuberculosis and died in 1847. This left Poe devastated. With the tragedy and loss Poe experienced in his life, he struggled with mental health issues and alcohol abuse. He suffered from deep periods of depression, especially after the death of his mother, foster mother, and wife Virginia. His drinking was so severe, he was fired from many literary magazines for it. This plays into Poe's early and unexpected death at age 40. A few days before he died, he was found delirious in Baltimore, wearing clothes that were not his own, and was admitted to the hospital. A few days later, he died, and the cause of it remains unknown. Theories range from murder, alcohol abuse, to even rabies. It is ironic that Poe's death is still a mystery, considering he spent his life writing about horror, murder, and the unknown. This contrast between the control he had in his writing and the uncertainty of his own end makes his life feel almost like one of his own haunting stories. We did get another famous work of Poe after he died, though, Annabel Lee. Written in 1849, shortly before he died, the poem reflects on the death of a beautiful young woman and the narrator's grief for her. It was published after his death in the newspapers and became one of his most beloved poems. Despite the tragedies, Poe left a lasting legacy as one of America's most influential writers. He mastered the art of psychological horror and Gothic storytelling, creating works that still captivate readers today. His ability to turn personal hardship into haunting, timeless literature shows how he profoundly shaped and influenced the horror genre.